Today we're making a different kind of Axe Effects patch. We're going to be making ambient swells. Now you may have seen this done either by using the volume pot on your guitar to swell it with your pinky finger after you played a note, or with a volume pedal by pressing the pedal down to make the volume increase. But we're going to do like an auto swell effect and make the patch do it for us. Let's take a look. So I've got everything deactivated at the minute. And to be fair, it doesn't matter too much what you do in terms of effects. Obviously delays and reverbs lend themselves to ambience, but then so do pitch shifters and that kind of thing. So, you know, experiment. The main trick here is the auto swell. So let's start with the amp and the cab. The amp, I've used the Jazz 120, which is, I think, a Roland Jazz Chorus. The input drive doesn't need to be that high. I just did it for a bit of extra volume, really. I've got the bright switch on because I want a brighter sound for this one, but you could equally turn that off. EQ to taste, it doesn't really matter. I've boosted the level quite a bit because it's quite a quiet patch. The cab, I just use the standard V30 that I like in the Axe Effects. Again, this bit is purely down to taste. I like the Jazz Chorus because it's like a really clean bass to start building a sound from. I'm on the bridge pickup, but this works on the neck, split chords, everything. Again, you can play with the pick or your fingers, thumb, etc. Play finger style, it doesn't really matter. To even it out, we'll use a compressor. Pedal comp, settings just as they come up. I didn't really change them. Then we've got a delay going into another delay. This is going to help smear the sound. So the first one, I used analog stereo with quarter notes, quite high feedback of 40% and quite a high mix at 73%. These aren't really settings that you'd use for a typical delay, but again, we're trying to smear the sound. We're trying to make delays, go into reverbs, and spread out those notes to make it a lot more ambient. So our first delay sounds like this, although in time we won't be hearing these repeats as clearly. Our second delay, we're going to have set to eighth notes. I'm using the Bucket Brigade model. Really high feedback at almost 75%, and quite high mix at nearly 70. Again, I was doing these by ear earlier. You could really fine tune these in if you wanted, but you'll hear when the auto swell comes in that it doesn't matter too much. After the cab, the signal splits in two. It goes to the multi-delay and the reverb. The multi-delay, I've used the plex shift. Got it at 30% and the level down at -9 because this can get a little bit overwhelming if you let it go crazy. I've also cleaned up the EQ by bringing the low cut up and the high cut down. Could probably do with a bit more low cut, to be honest. Having all those delays going on the low end doesn't always sit well in mix. And although you'll hear this is quite a high pitched sound, I've brought this down to stop it from getting too cringy on the ears. In the pitch section, I've got 2 octaves, so both at 12 semitones above the played note, slightly detuned from each other. One's doing quarter notes, one's doing eighth notes, and you'll see I brought the level down on 3 and 4, so it's just these first 2. So what we've got here is a delay going into another delay, becoming smeared here. Then after it's been amplified, it's hitting another delay, and these third stage delays are being pitch shifted, which gives us this cool crystal effect. Now, I think that sounds awesome, but what you need to be careful of is that they don't go out of control. So if I remove this high cut here, you'll hear how grating this can get. Let's control them. I find they're high pitched enough to introduce enough high end content without the help of this thing. On the other side of this split, we've got a reverb. I picked the Sun plate, I don't know why. Nearly 60% mix. So together this sounds a bit like this. As with most patches, this is purely down to how you're feeling when you're building the patch. I don't remember why I picked this one, but it sounds great. Now, if you're a person of taste, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking that it just sounds like someone's just got all their effects pedals and turned them all on at the same time. That is pretty much how this sound's built. But to make it into something that I'd use, we use the volume block, 38 taper. And I've turned the volume all the way down. And you right click here to introduce a modifier. I've selected envelope. And if you click on controllers, you'll see all the controls that you can apply to your effects here. We've used envelope. The threshold you set to match the guitar that you're using. If I switch this to the piezo pickup, the threshold would need to be different to pick it up. A really slow attack, again, you could knock this all the way up and make it super ambient. Release all the way down because I don't want it to linger too long after I play the notes, and the gain up just slightly. So what this does, if you go back to our volume, you see that when I play the note, that envelope is going to follow the settings that we've just put in there. Now I could just sit and play that all day. If this was a recording situation, I would probably do this in the DAW as opposed to auto swell it, just because that gives me more control over the sounds. But just for writing inspiration or just playing along, that's a really beautiful sound. As a bonus extra, you can add the pitch block on its own little path. Make sure you switch it to mute out on the bypass. All I've got here is just an octave down. The second one's turned off on the fixed harmony mode. And all this is doing is adding an octave below and sending it straight to the reverb past all the delays. And this gives you just a more of a kind of soundscape kind of thing with like a lower octave going on. And that's it for this patch. You really can do pretty much anything you want after the amp. This is the main thing to focus on. Right click in here, select an envelope, and change the envelope settings until you get something that sounds more like a swell. You can add flangers, phasers, all sorts of different multi-tap delays, reverb stacked onto reverbs. As long as it sounds like some sort of ambient space sound, it's going to work with this volume swell. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.